Morning, everyone. Happy Friday. It's Black Friday, actually. So we have a lot to celebrate the day after Thanksgiving. We are here in the morning for the Teach Better Team Daily Drop-In, and I have two incredible guests for me. Before we get into all of that, please throw your messages in the comments, share where you're watching from, and let's get started with the fun of our daily drop-ins. Morning, everyone. It's so good to see all of you. I am live with the Dr. Dave Schmittou and Brandon Beck. I don't know what to do with both of you on the screen. This is so exciting. Thank you for both coming live for our daily drop-in. This is awesome.
Ray, I know we were joking early on, but there's a hint of truth in this. When I said Brandon's here, that's amazing. I can just sit back and let Brandon just fill us with wisdom today. I'm excited. This was the reason I signed up for Friday, because Brandon Beck was here. So this is good stuff.
Makes sense.
I appreciate that.
Brandon, how's your day going? Like your morning so far?
It's good. Well, listen, my morning's good. Had a little turkey hangover, but other than that, I'm good. Kids are wrapped up watching Christmas shows on TV, and we're getting ready to put some decorations around the house. And yeah, it was a good day yesterday. Yesterday was a good day to unplug. Small but intimate.
I want to get into all those good traditions. I feel like everybody has a tradition around this time, like the day after Thanksgiving. So we should get into all of that. I'm loving seeing all the comments of good morning in the chat. So thank you to those of you who are participating today. It's always so fun. These daily drop-ins are designed for you. We are truly coming live just to create a safe space to talk, ask questions, and share some positive energy. Before we get too far into the traditions, the questions, and everything, all the shenanigans that are going to happen. Dave, I think it'd be great if you could kick us off. Could you just share what's your role in education? What do you do with the team? All the good things, in case for whatever reason people haven't chosen to really connect with you yet, which is silly because I think you're live with the team 4 times a week.
Well, yeah. So first of all, if you're not connected with me, let me give you my phone number before you hear anything else, because I want to connect with you.
Yes.
My phone number, 734-377-3457. Just call me or text me because I need friends. So that's number one. My role in the world, primarily, I am a father of 4 kids. That occupies probably about 95% of my time. Family man, do a lot with my family and all of that. But I also do a lot with my extended family, my Teach Better family. My official title, Ray, correct me if I'm wrong in this, but Director of Leadership and Development, something along those lines.
That sounded really good. I don't know if you made
that's
that
not it. Make it official, Mr. Gargas. So Director of Leadership and Development. I have also been a teacher, a middle school principal, middle school assistant principal, elementary principal, assistant superintendent, college professor, kind of just cover the gamut, trying to dabble in all the things to try to figure out what I'm good at. And one of these days I'll find it. So that's me in a nutshell.
It's so good, Dave. You've done so much, and I know that you're so humble, but I love working with you on projects because your expertise is in such a, I'm just such a, I'm a Dave Schmittou fan. You know that I need my Schmittou shirt. So this is awesome for me that Jeff isn't live with you and I get to be live with you.
Just keep in mind, expertise and experience are not necessarily the same thing.
That's true.
Just throwing that out there.
But you're funny when you're doing it, and I feel like that's
there we go. There you go. Yeah, if you can make fun of your flaws, then let's do it. Yeah.
Now, Brandon, I want you to share a little about yourself as well. I feel like you, as in addition to Dave and so many people in the Teach Better family, you're all over the place, always supporting educators, doing incredible things. I'd love for you to share a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am an author at Codebreaker currently with a book called Unlocking Unlimited Potential. You can see it behind me. It's actually coming out next month, so I'm super excited about that. I'm a 5th grade, I call myself a monolingual, bilingual educator. I teach in a dual language classroom Monday to Friday. And after school, I am a soccer coach on a field. I also run a small business and also am just a coach of coaches. So I give people coaching education around the United States, around the Northeast in the United States. I'm in New York. So, I just also getting into this whole idea with the book comes speaking, comes professional development that I'm super excited about. Have a doctorate in education, national board certification. So on paper, I look pretty good, but I've just kind of tried to take everything that I learned and put it all into one book and kind of surrounds my mission of being an educator or someone who just really tries to unlock unlimited potential in everybody I serve. And I think that's kind of our goal as for all educators, is that we're really looking to, unlock the unlimited potential. And the book kind of walks you through it. And Dave actually has a little piece of writing inside it. So I'm glad to have him collaborating in it. And he's part of a chapter that we wrote about COVID. And reflecting about how we using challenges as opportunities for growth.
Brandon, I love the support that you're able to provide educators, the conversations you start. But what I really want to ask you about is soccer. How do you feel about that?
Feeling really good. You know what? This is actually a day off from the field for me. I do have teams heading out to tournaments, which is crazy that they're actually going to tournaments in the Northeast, and it's been a wild week. But they're going out to tournaments and, hopefully moving forward and, finding some sense of normalcy in all this craziness. As we move inside into the winter, things start to get really more challenging. But in the world of soccer, Chelsea is number one, and we'll see on Sunday who's number one, Rae, won't we, when they beat Tottenham.
Did you misspeak about the Chelsea comment? I'm sorry. You said the wrong team name. That must have been in your head because that's who they're playing, but you meant Tottenham, right? That's what we're voting for.
We'll see on Sunday. We'll
I gotta be honest with you. Right now, I feel like that monolingual, bilingual teacher. I'm like, what are we talking about here? I grew up believing that soccer was the game for people that couldn't catch. So this is a foreign concept for me right now.
Dave, I just want you to know that if I'm going to be Team Schmittou, you need to root for Tottenham. That's really all that matters.
Tottenham. Oh, I have no idea what that word means, but yes, go Tottenham.
Yes, I love this. See, Brandon, that's why I brought Dave on. Like, yes, Dave is so fun to chat with, but I knew he'd side with me on soccer. Here we go. Oh no, we have somebody watching here that's going with Leicester City. No.
Oh, Leicester. Leicester's a great team. That's a storied team. Jamie Vardy, big fan.
But I would vote for them over Chelsea. I think I just, have to go against Chelsea simply because you're such a big fan, Brandon. That's really what it is.
Yeah, well, I don't want Dave to get too uncomfortable here. We should bring this back to
I know.
I am so far in a corner right now. It's ridiculous.
So guys, our daily drop-ins were created, back in March, when a lot of the world was shutting down, just to be a space for educators to ask questions, talk shop, kind of share positivity. I would love to hear your thoughts on really what you're seeing educators ask questions about. You're both very active with supporting educators. Are there commonalities you're seeing that teachers are still really working through, especially during this time of year where, a lot of educators in the US are on a Thanksgiving break? Whereas, we still have a month of December left of school, and I think teachers are out there just trying to do their best work.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Rae. I'll circle this back. When I first connected to Brandon, it was late spring, early summer. I mean, he and I just talked on the phone for a couple of hours, really, a couple times throughout the summer, and we were connecting on kind of the same question. And it feels like so many people out there have questioned whether or not this is something they still want to continue to do, whether or not this is, if they still have, I'm just going to sound so bad, Brandon, I'm going to completely plug you here. If they've really tapped into their potential as educators to continue to reach kids like they thought they signed up for, whenever that was, whether it was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago. So many people feel like the rules of the game have changed, and they're wondering, can I persist? Can I keep going? And am I making a difference? So trying to tap into teachers and remind them that they are still difference makers, no matter the platform, has been something that I've been trying to be intentional about over the last couple of months.
Yeah. And just to add to that, it's, I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is, the question is, what's next? What's going to happen tomorrow? And I think what it's led to, and what I've noticed a lot, and I talk about it a lot with a lot of people, and a lot of people who follow me probably see it a lot, it's led to a lot of self-limiting beliefs. am I going to be okay tomorrow? Is this okay for me to step into the classroom and teach? Is it safe? Is it, is it going to be okay teaching kids today in person, tomorrow hybrid, and the next day 100% remote? Because where I am in New York, there's a lot of obviously increasing cases, and there's a lot of schools that are flipping. A lot of them said after Thanksgiving that they're going to go from Thanksgiving to December to after the holiday. They're going to just shut down and be 100% remote. And then there's some schools that aren't. So, it's just kind of, the craziness and the laws that are coming out where we are, where now that if you're in a certain zone, that schools are going to have to test teachers and test a certain number of kids. And so there's a lot of uncertainties. And, it's crossing a line where, how much am I really willing to risk for my own safety and my own health? And then it comes down to the question of, all right, well, how much does this say about me? If I'm really not willing to do this, does this really mean that I'm not in there for my students and really in it to win it? Or, so there's that thin line, I think. And that thin line is really, it's thin ice. And, depending on which way you go on that decision, it can lead to a lot of, I would say a lot of self-limiting beliefs and am I doing the right thing?
So what do we do? Because as I'm thinking through like all these pieces that you both have just shared as a teacher, I'm a full-time 6th grade math teacher in addition to being the director of training and development for the Teach Better team. My, with that fear, with that concern, what's the first step? What's the 20th step that you guys see, being beneficial, not only making the decision, but being comfortable with the decision and moving forward, trying to serve students as best as possible whenever those decisions are made around me?
Yeah, for me, I feel like I'm going to go Sylvester Stallone here and go over the top real quick so I can just start bringing it.
Love it.
For me, I think the priority is really to focus on the focus. I know that sounds cheesy and cliche, but I think there's so much value from just realizing where you can actually control circumstances and where you can't. I know right now we all want to have our voice in everything. We want to control everything, and I get it. I get it. I'm a control freak. I want to control all things all the time, but I can't. And when I try to control too much is when I start to unravel and I start to find myself spinning. And this is good advice, whether we're in a pandemic or not. Doubling down and focusing on the focus. And I talk about this a lot when we're talking about grading and standards and identifying those key standards and focusing on the focus standards, or whether you're a leader and just allowing teachers to make the decisions that they can make and you make the decisions that you need to make. The same thing is true right now. Focus on the things that you can control. A lot of times we can't control what the governors or the state legislatures or the Board of Ed or whatever everybody else is saying or doing. We can't control what's happening a lot of times in kids' houses with their parents and their environments and their technology. What we can control is what we do today. Are you sitting around sipping some coffee and pouring into your family? You can control how much time you're going to pour into your lesson plans. You can control a lot, but you don't need to control everything. So focus on what you can focus on. Focus on the focus, not a focus, but the focus, the things that truly are the most important, and then go from there.
Yeah, I think that's like your catchphrase. I always quote you whenever I use that statement, focus on the focus. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think also the other thing too is there's so many things out there that you can do that can take you into a positive place. And I think the first place that you go is to your, hashtag PLN, right? And, just being on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and connecting with all these other people is really what helps to kind of share the word and share the value of what's going on. I mean, if you're having a problem in New York, and, I think it was Dan who had a comment earlier that said, these are some of the changes that lead to a global discussion. And yeah, I totally agree, because I could be having a problem in New York, and then when I start talking to people from, Illinois and Nebraska and California and Ontario and all over North America, Michigan.
Yeah.
There he is, Michigan. Once I start doing that, I start to feel like I'm not alone. And at the beginning of all of this, way back in March, when this pandemic started, I have to I have to admit that I didn't know a lot of this stuff existed. I mean, I'm sorry to say I didn't know about Teach Better Team. I didn't know about Twitter chats. I started to see like hash A1 and Q1, and I started to see all these hashtags. And I was like, what is that? And I started to follow them, and I started to see, like, I actually Googled what's a Twitter chat, and I had no idea. And then all of a sudden, like, I found myself participating in like 4 or 5 of these Twitter chats a week, and just being able to connect with a lot of the people that are even watching this video right now has just been empowering. And I think we're always in control of our feed. We're always in control of where we stop our finger when we're scrolling, and what articles we click on. And you know, especially during the beginning with the number of increasing cases when COVID was starting and all of these crazy news, what's going to happen next? This is what's going to happen. Schools are doing this. Schools are not doing this. And just paying attention to what we're focusing on, we're able to really hone in on the focus, you know, and be able to focus in on ourselves, honestly, which is we need to make sure that we are empowered before we start to do any empowering elsewhere.
You know, it's funny. I think a lot of people are kind of like Tony, similar to you, Brandon, where people kind of stumble upon social media and the value it brings from a professional standpoint. And then you're kind of like Googling it and trying to play catch up the whole time. I know me personally, I've shared this in both my books, that I got on Twitter because a master's class that I was taking required it. And I was 1 credit away from graduating with my master's. And I was like, I got to get done with this. And so I did it just for the sake of the grade. And, you know, being able to form relationships now, I don't know what, I mean, I would be a completely different educator if I hadn't created a Twitter account. And Dave, I know you do so much to grow your PLN. I want to go to you in a minute, but Brandon, you specifically, and you alluded to it here, I know a lot, you weren't on social media up until really recently. So for somebody who maybe hasn't taken the plunge, who isn't somebody who's come across this accidental circumstance yet, where they created a Twitter or an Instagram account or whatever social media platform you choose and chose to connect with educators, do you have a suggestions on how to get started? Because what I find is that building a PLN is a great idea, but people don't know where to begin. So it sounds really challenging and overwhelming.
Yeah, I think the first thing, you know, most importantly, is you can direct message me and I'll happy to connect you with all my people. But the other thing I think is most important is, you know, when you reach out, when you get into some of these Twitter chats, that's where I started. I started in some of these Twitter chats, and then I started to realize that some of the same people were in the same other Twitter chats. And then I just started to connect with people. And what I honestly did is I just messaged them. I just direct messaged them. I reached out to them. Hey, I'm writing a book. Here's I have some ideas I'd love to talk to you about. Or even if you're not writing a book, just, hey, I really liked what you were talking about. And I'd love it if you could share some resource. And we've shared resources with other people. I'm having the same issue that you had that you were talking about on that issue. And I reached out, and I would say 99% of the time, every single person reached back and was more than helpful. I mean, I reached out to Dave, and Dave was like, hey, here's my phone number. And next thing I know, we're on a phone call for a couple hours. And I did the same thing with you, Rae. And I just kept reaching out to people, not only because I had a book, but also because I just had questions and I just wanted to learn people's story. And I think if you're interested and you're like genuinely interested in people's story, and just kind of their stories really, you know, their stories just kind of made me more comfortable, and it was just interesting to hear. And then after a while, you start to learn about people's families, and you start to learn about, you know, different things, that different passion projects that they have going on, and just you start to see so many connections. And it's been a while because we've been locked inside, and, you know, since March. And when we can go across the border, like I'm going to Canada, and I got a lot of friends to visit.
Yeah, it's true. Dave, what's your experience with not only growing your PLN, but suggestions? Because to be completely honest, there is so much reflection I've done on our friendship, really, because we did connect professionally for months and months and months and months. And I don't know if you remember this, but I called you a few months ago and was like, Dave, I consider you like one of my closest friends, but I know nothing about you personally. I need you to give me the rundown, kids' names, like all these things, because I'm like,
basically played 20 questions on a road trip. Yeah.
You did play 20 questions on a road trip, and I loved it because I'm like, dude, I work with you, versus the Twitterverse and with the Teach Better team. I'm like, we got to keep building this relationship. So what's your experience with growing a PLN and suggestions you have for somebody who hasn't yet gotten started?
Yeah, I think one of the easiest ways, and I'm just looking at the comments right now, and as I'm looking at the comments, there's a couple of things I want to point out, a couple of things I'm noticing. The vast majority of people that respond to the comments or watch this seem to do so on Facebook. And I get that. And I think one of the reasons why is because of the algorithm that Facebook uses is they want to keep people in Facebook. When you're on Facebook, you start to notice that everybody seems to have the same voice, say the same things, because Facebook does not want you to necessarily say, oh, there's somebody that disagrees with me, so I'm going to jump out of Facebook and go somewhere else. They put you in this little bubble, which is good at times. And I would say in this time, it's a good thing because you're in a nice group here. And if you're watching this on Facebook, you have the opportunity right now to see a bunch of names of people and say, have I connected with that person individually? And you can click on their little icon and go down a little rabbit trail and see where it takes you, which is awesome. But then you can also leap over and you can look for those same people on Twitter. You can look for those same people on YouTube. You can find those people on different platforms, and then your network will just grow. And as I'm looking at some of the comments here, Lindsay Titus said that she first found Teach Better because she and I were kind of connected. And then she said, oh, Dave's in this group. Let me see what that group is. And then she did the same thing I just described. She started checking everybody else out. Tony Slate, same thing from down in Texas. He saw the live event and it's like, oh, and then he and I talked on the phone and he said, what's this Teach Better thing about? And we just kind of grew. Me and Brandon, same kind of thing. You just have to be willing to creep a little bit. I mean, it sounds weird, but you have to creep. I've told this story many times, but the truth is I've got a podcast where I talk to a lot of different people, for an hour at a time. And part of that is because it's a lot easier to have a conversation with somebody, to pick up the phone and say, hey, will you go on my podcast so I can talk to you for an hour and get to know you? And you have that as that opener, as opposed to, hey, this is Dave. I'm a creepy guy that lives in Michigan. I'm in my basement right now. Can we talk for an hour? I mean, that sends a much different message. But for some reason, if I tell people, and I'm going to record it, the world can see it, they're like, oh, yeah, then I'm totally in. I don't know why that is, but people are okay with it. So find your avenue, find a question to ask, and then just reach out to people and ask a question and see where it takes you.
Okay, so I know there's a lot of things we could talk about with your background, but I want to keep on social media really quick because you commented about Facebook and Twitter. Instagram, I know, is a big one as well for educators to connect. And really, the first step is identifying what platform you want to use. It doesn't mean you can't use all of them. I mean, me personally, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, but I use all three of them very differently. And the way that I consume information and what information I consume is different based on the platform, right or wrong. So do you guys have a favorite, and do you know why it's your favorite?
I do. Absolutely. I definitely have a favorite. And it's funny because each one is a little different for me. And I think, even Lindsay's comment there, and I met Lindsay through the Twitterverse as well. And, if you know why you're doing what you're doing, like for me, I like to use videos, and it's a weird thing, right? To put these videos out there and to have a camera in your front of your face and just to be talking for a minute or a minute and a half. But, and that to me, like, certain things held me back a little bit. Like, for example, my Facebook account was kind of personal when I first started this. And I was a little nervous about putting videos out there on Facebook that were like related to what I was doing in education, because it's content. And I'm almost preparing, and I'm still preparing, like a Jerry Maguire moment, like letter to my entire universe saying like, hey, this is what I'm doing. If you don't like it, keep scrolling. It's totally cool, but it's going to keep coming. And that's the thing, is like, there's this part of you inside of you that's always like holding you back a little bit. But it goes back to what Lindsay said. If you really know why you're doing it, and to me, why am I doing it? Well, I'm doing it to inspire educators so that not only they can learn from me, but I can learn from them in their stories. And I think it's really important because, be able to do that. So to be able to do that on Facebook, I don't do it so much on Facebook. I do it more on Twitter and Instagram. So like Facebook is a little bit more personal, and it's kind of, I'm finding such a large connection with more educators on Facebook. Whereas Twitter's like I think Dave explained it to me once. He said it's more like the OGs in Twitter is where, like, you know, kind of like all the professors are, all the, you know, the hardcore educators who participate in Twitter chats. And then I think Instagram kind of reaches more of a different kind of an audience too, where I think it's, you know, it's more about just images and not let necessarily people don't seem to be reading like what you're writing about. Whereas in the Twitter, I think it's more about what you're saying and not so much about the image and what's attached to that or videos. And the same with Facebook. Facebook is just kind of like a little bit of everything, in my opinion.
Dave, what are your thoughts on that?
So I see it the same, yet a little bit different. So for me in social media, I grew up in the MySpace generation, you know, so it's a little bit different for me. And then MySpace evolved into Facebook, and my Facebook account has gone through multiple variations. Facebook for me is a safe place to go, which sounds ironic because of all the hate that Facebook always gets. But for me, it is a safe place. I feel like it's a place where I feel like I have a little bit more control over what I see, what I don't see. And the algorithms help control that a little bit, that I only start to see the things I actually comment on and like on. So AKA like and comment on this real quick so you can continuously teach better stuff. Also, so Facebook is kind of that go-to when I just have 5 minutes. I just want to scroll through something. I'll go to Facebook. Twitter for me was where I got my first start on branching out of my own little bubble. Brandon mentioned Twitter chats. I was doing Twitter chats twice a day and 3 times on Sunday when I first got started, because Twitter chats there's that place for me to be, for other people to poke my bear and to really get me uncomfortable and to figure out what I really was comfortable with. I would enter into these chats where people were having these conversations and saying these provocative things and asking questions that I didn't have answers to. And I could just scroll through and try to find some geniuses out there that knew things I didn't. And it was an opportunity for me to truly see and hear from people that I wasn't already connected to. Because when you're in those chats, you see everything, whether you're connected to people or not, and you're able to just grow and go. My favorite place to be right now, however, is Instagram. And the reason I like Instagram so much is, one, I talk a lot, and Instagram doesn't necessarily allow that because it's a picture says 1,000 words. But two, I think it's time sensitive, especially when you're on Instagram stories, knowing that it's going to disappear in 24 hours. You know, you're capturing and seeing what's current and what's relevant in somebody's life. I spend way more time going through people's stories than I do scrolling through their feed, because I want to see what's happening right now. It's honestly where I can catch up on what's happening. Like with you, Rae, I know you're really good at posting in stories, and it allows me to figure out what's happening in the daily drop-in tomorrow, or what Rae Hughhart's up to tonight. Is she making the turkey, or is mom making the turkey? Like, I can figure that kind of stuff out, where sometimes on Facebook or Twitter, when your networks start to grow a little bit, some of that stuff gets buried and you might not see it for 2 or 3 days, and you get confused on when things are happening. So
interesting perspective. You know, I think in related to what you two were sharing in terms of your evaluation of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, this comment right here says, I'm not sure how I use the platform differently. I tend to post the same things everywhere. I think when this was originally posted as a comment, my mindset was, oh, let me tell you how I use all 3 differently. And then we could even add like LinkedIn into this. I mean, there are there's so many platforms, guys. I think the major difference for me is that social media is a two-way street. Mm-hmm. So you're not only sharing, like this comment of I tend to post the same information on all 3. It's not just about you posting content, but how you want to consume the content. And Dave, you kind of led into this a bit when you're talking about Instagram stories, because that's talking about not you necessarily posting, but how you're consuming the information. And I really find the different mediums to support not only the types of information I choose to consume, but also the medium in which I like to consume that information. I've talked about this before, that I like Instagram because I'm not a strong reader. I do read. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm an educator, but I had an IEP growing up, and, you know, I'm SLB in reading and writing when I was a kid, and that always was hard. Yes. So like for me, going onto Twitter, it's a more challenging medium because I'm choosing to read people's thoughts, versus on Instagram stories, people are just talking at me. And that's an easier way to consume information. So there's a lot of moving pieces. This isn't a one-dimensional topic, but finding the medium that you like not only has to do with sharing, but consuming. It really is that two-way street.
It's really that differentiated instruction for grownups is what it is.
Mhm.
And what's interesting, a lot of times when we're talking about special education and differentiated instruction, we'll hear people say, well, that's a strategy that's good for all students. And there's truth to that. But sometimes when we focus on the specialties, we're able to then realize the power it has. And a way that you can, as a consumer, can try to figure out where the real strength is, start to look for those copycat moments within social media. Think about Instagram Reels, for example. Instagram Reels, they're stealing that from TikTok, and TikTok evolved from Snapchat. Like all these platforms are starting to find those secret little niches that work. And they're saying, ooh, that worked for them. Let me copy that. So it's up to us if we want to continue to grow, then not just figure out where our safe space is, but to figure out how to expand. Like when Twitter first went from 140 characters to 280 characters, I was ticked. I thought, are you kidding me? Now I have to read twice as much. But it's 280 characters, people. And now I'm thinking, why can't they go to 360? Why can't they go to 500? They're trying to figure out what works. And we as educators needed to stay current and evolve. So
yeah. No, go ahead, Brandon.
No, and I was just say, I actually recently came across LinkedIn. I mean, I always had an account, but I just kind of like updated myself on it and got everything up to date. And what I've also found with LinkedIn is how, I mean, I probably didn't log in for like a year, and all of a sudden now that's looks more like a Facebook feed, and it looks more like a Twitter feed where, and the thing is you also, there's a couple different ways, in my opinion, like, you can get Hootsuite or some other, there's other free platforms. Hootsuite's not really a free platform that you can use, but you can get platforms to use that you can basically, with one click of a button, you can post across all different medias, which is great. But to me, I try to be a little bit more authentic, but it also is a little more time consuming. So I'm not sure how much longer it's going to take. How I'm going to do it this way, but I try to have like my posts in Instagram be a little different than my posts in Twitter and my posts in Facebook and LinkedIn. And the thing is just, there's so many different ways. And at the end of the day, it goes back to like your purpose. What is your purpose? My purpose is to connect in as many ways as possible and share as much as I can so that I can learn from others as much as they're learning from me. And that's always been what this has all been about. And I think, finding the avenue that is the least time consuming, and that is the because it can be stressful when you're sitting there and being like, well, I got to post this or do this, or I want to make sure people see this. And I'm kind of trying to do more of posting things that I'm actually doing in the classroom, videos of myself teaching with my students, so that people can kind of see me in a different light than just me sitting here like this talking in front of a camera.
Yeah.
Ray, can I go back to something you said a few minutes ago? I think it was a powerful point. And I want people to zero in on this, that it is more than just us putting out content too. It's also, where do you want to be that consumer? You have to think about that. Where are the people that you want to follow and that you want to learn from? For me, when I first started out, I was a Rick Wormley Group E. Like that if that man was walking, I was laying down in front of him saying, "Don't get your feet wet, sir." Like I would go wherever he was. And back then he was living on Twitter. So I said, I don't know what this Twitter thing is, but Rick's there. I'm going. And then it became Dave Burgess. I was like, whatever Dave Burgess says is gold. I'm going to follow the pirate anywhere he goes. And he was leading Twitter chat. So I ran that direction. And honestly, Rae Hughart, she's on Instagram stories. Whew, Instagram's where I'm going to be right now, because that's what I want to see. You have to figure out where the people are that are telling the stories that you need to learn from. It's if you got a favorite actor and he's on TV, you watch TV. If he's pumping out movies, you watch the movies. If he starts spitting out a podcast, you'll listen to the podcast. You go where the people are that you want to learn from and grow from.
Yeah, no, that's extremely true. And sometimes I'm embarrassed by how differently I use the platforms. But I think, as we were talking about earlier, when I say use the platforms differently, I actually don't mean my posting. I mean my consuming.
Yeah.
I use social media so much more to consume than anything else. I post a ton on LinkedIn, and then I post occasionally Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And when I post occasionally on those platforms, it's usually the same post, unless I'm participating in a Twitter chat, which then is like organic because we're talking about a conversation. But I consume so differently on these platforms. If you looked at my Instagram feed, if I pulled it up, I don't really follow educators in their posts. Like I actually, in my Instagram feed is like architecture and art and things that have nothing to do with education. That's my space to consume information outside of my field. And yet the stories may not be that way. You know, like the
Mhm.
stories are full of educators sharing ideas. And so I've used that platform differently. Twitter, kind of like as we were saying earlier, Twitter is my go-to for hard-hitting educational topics, people that are going to challenge me. If I don't want to be like really thinking, I don't log on to Twitter, because Twitter always has a piece of information I need to reflect on and, just, make a decision on how I'm going to explore that topic further. And Facebook, right or wrong for me, I feel like is the place where I connect with like family and friends that may or may not be in education. A lot of my feed isn't education. And for the things that are, it's usually something I've also seen on Twitter and Instagram. So there seems to be a lot of overlap there.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Anywho, I just think this is such an interesting conversation, simply because Brandon, I knew when we connected, you were new to this whole game, and then you have, seemingly blown up in the work that you've been doing because you've chosen to be a connected educator. And I just love the opportunities that opens up, not only for you, but for people that connect with you, that then get to learn from your voice and your, stance on certain topics. So it's extremely beneficial.
Well, it's been wild because, I think I had like 100 followers when this all, like, back in March, and it rapidly increased. And it's not really so much to me about the followers, but it's about the people that I've been following, and being able to connect with these people. And like I said, like, I just come across them in Twitter chats and I start to see the same people. And it's like, I feel like these people I really, really know inside and out, because I'm now connected to them on all the different medias. So you get to see all the different layers of all these different people with the different reasons they post and why they post, but now they've kind of brought you into their circle. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just kind of being vulnerable and being out there, and just realizing that, the purpose of these videos and the purpose of being out there is so that we can all connect in other ways. I mean, yeah, I have a book coming out, but the book is just one small part of the future ahead, and being connected to others and being able to be resourceful is really what it's all about. And, I've sat in on professional development meetings before, and they've been like, oh, well, this is what the professional development is about this, and everybody's heads are butting and they're all stuck. And all of a sudden I send a Twitter post out to like my PLN, and like within like 15 minutes, I have like 243 answers to, or ways they've handled this issue in 17 different places, and that to me is like so helpful. And that's where it's all, the value of it all is.
Yeah.
So we are going to move forward from social media. However, if you are listening right now, if you enjoyed this conversation, we not only want you to participate in the comments, like so many of you already have, but if you have things that you would like to hear from Dave, from Brandon, topics that you'd like us to talk on, questions that you might have, whether it be about the Teach Better team, Brandon's book, I mean, anything that comes to mind that you want some perspective on, this entire space is created to support you. So as you're listening Friday morning, just know that we really, really encourage you to participate in the comments, even if it's something as simple as, ooh, I really agree with that. Tell me more. Can we expand on that? Or something completely different, like I'm struggling with student engagement right now, and as we go back to the classroom Monday morning, I really want to make sure I'm supporting all of my learners. Feel free to throw that in the chat. If you are somebody who has listened to this conversation, you're actually interested in getting on social media, I want you to take a few steps. This is very easy. I want you to consider how you want to consume information and the type of people that you want to connect with. And then I want you to officially choose a platform and make an account. The easiest thing to do from there is to go to the profile of somebody that you care about, respect, want to learn from, and see who they are following and retweeting, and then just go crazy with following. No matter what the platform you choose, that works so easily. I've done it, especially as I got started, and I do it now when I find people that I want to connect with. If they share a great idea on a Twitter chat or share a great idea on Instagram stories or anything in between, I click on their profile, I follow them, and then I see who else is they're tagging or retweeting, and then you're able to connect with those 4 or 5 people that are in that inner circle as well, and you just continue to grow. So you can do it, and it is an incredible way to continue to consume relevant information from multiple different perspectives, and all those put together is going to support your learners. So that's really why we're in this anyway, is how can we take this information and support our kiddos? So love all that stuff. Dave and Brandon, you guys have so many different passion points in education. If you had to pick kind of your soapbox ideas, I know, so I knew that Dave was going to be upset about this, but if you had to pick like your soapbox concept, that if there was nothing else, an educator learned from you, it would be this. Do you guys mind sharing what that would be? I assume that it would be different for the both of you because you do work in education, but have expertise in different spaces. So, or maybe, you have passions in different spaces. Which one of you wants to start? It's a hard question, I know, but I know I could pinpoint, I think, what I think you're going to say. So,
are you ready, Brandon?
No, you are.
Okay. So I think I could split this up into 1,000 different things, but the big broad brush that I'll paint with is labels hurt, period. Whatever the label is, and no matter how you're arriving at that label, I'm yet to find a label that helped support, change, and grow somebody. Because oftentimes when we label a person, whether it's a child or an adult, it puts them within a box. And we begin to start attributing attributes to that person because of the label more than the individual. So I'm a big believer that if we want to reach every person, we have to reach each person. And you can only reach each if you don't attach a label to them. Whether it's a label that we think is a positive attribute, like gifted, I've told my own personal story on how that has impacted me, or at risk, or some sort of special education disability, or whatever the case may be. We all assume positive intent, and I understand why we do it. We do it to try to help and support. I get all of that. But oftentimes it leads down this dangerous road of limiting behaviors. So labels hurt. That's where I'll go.
Yeah, and I'll just pick up that. I'm glad I let you go first because I'm going to pick up right on the other end of that. So that's perfect. So I think it starts with you. And I think that's always been my biggest thing with anything. And that's kind of the theme behind my book is it starts with you, whatever self-limiting beliefs, whatever's in front of you, whatever labels are in front of you. There is inside you a fire that needs to not only, keep burning, but it should be like a bonfire inside of wanting that passion, that, that first year teacher passion where you would do anything, that whatever it takes attitude. And how do you come to school every day and be grateful for that? And, it all starts with, and I've said it a million times, it all starts with going back to your why and your purpose and really making sure. One thing that I would recommend to every educator is that you have like a statement, a purpose statement. Just my purpose as an educator is, and I know mine is, I can say it verbatim because I read it every day. And my purpose is to inspire and guide adults and students to find their inner genius. And I have it on a decal that I made, a big sticker, and I put it on my wall in my classroom. And every day it's like, I'm like the Notre Dame football team going out to the field. I touch it, I look at it, I sit with it for a minute or two and just kind of read through it right before the students walk in. It's right next to my door. And I think if you understand why you're doing what you're doing, nothing's really going to get in your way, because no matter what kind of things get thrown at you or whatever limiting beliefs are out there, if you're aligned with who you are and why you are who you are and why you're doing it, it comes back to just lighting that fire and keeping it going. And any challenges are going to make you be resourceful. You're going to find the answers. You're going to go and reach out to all these people through all of these different networks so that you can continue to find answers to get you through, or at least solutions to help you start on the road to, the road to awesomeness. I guess I'll quote there and pepper.
Oh, another little plug. Well played, Brandon Beck. Well played.
Love that.
Yeah, Rae, can I talk about that last comment that Lindsay Titus put out there?
Let's do it. I'm going to throw it up here so everyone can read it. It says, do you want to read it for them and then also comment on it?
Sure. So Lindsay writes, if a label comes from someone else, it's someone else's opinion of us. When we define who we are from within, we can't get it wrong. So I think that's deep and that's so profound, but I want to add on to that as well, because I think oftentimes we think that we're defining ourselves based off of our own objective lens. But it can be so easily be based off of the voices that are in our head that came from somebody else. So prime example, I am in a routine of every single morning. I get up and I stand on the scale before I get ready for the day. I know it's a stupid habit and I do it every day. It's ridiculous. And that scale fluctuates. So that's one way that I could measure my own growth and my own health, is looking at the scale. If I look at the scale this morning, it's going to be a nightmare because of what happened yesterday. Right? Or I can get ready every day and I can look in the mirror. That's another way to assess my own growth, my own progress. Or I can go out and say, hey, everybody, how do I look today? And I can get their opinions of my own growth and my own progress. There are so many different ways to measure your own growth, your progress. Ray, go ahead.
Hey, Dave, I don't want to interrupt you, but you look great, buddy. Keep it up.
Oh, why thank you. Well, that's all that matters. So no scale needed, no mirror needed today.
Nope.
But that's the reality of it. I go back to this summer. I remember you and Caitlin were doing an afternoon drop-in, and there was this funny story that Caitlin was telling about going out and getting this huge mirror at IKEA or something, and it's this full-length mirror. And it was a hilarious story, but I think that story says so much about who Caitlin is, because Caitlin is this super reflective person, and she wants to reflect on the whole person. You know, you can go out and you can just get one of those little purse mirrors and just look at your face, or you can get a full-length mirror and check out who you are and come up with your own self-assessment. You have to figure out what it is that you're shooting for. Are you looking, if just totally going with this example, are you looking to simply lose weight? Are you looking to change body shape and body type? Are you looking to decrease fat? Are you looking to decrease cholesterol? Like, what is it that you're after? And whatever you're going after cannot just be, I want to look the same as that person I see on Instagram or that person I follow on Facebook. If you're on Twitter, you can't say, I just want to start, I just want to get a retweet from that one person. That's how I'll know I'll make it. Because then you start drifting towards, I'm going to start saying the things that are provocative just so that person will like me. You have to identify what your thing is that you want to measure against so that you can reflect yourself, so that you can judge your own growth and you can continue to move forward.
Is there a better mic drop? I don't know how to. I couldn't agree more. It's so incredibly important. And I'm so glad you took the time to comment on that, because Lindsay Titus always has mic drop moments. I mean, I don't know if you guys caught her daily drop in a few days ago, but that girl kills me every time she speaks. My mouth stays open the whole time, trying to take notes and like keep my face normal, because she blows my mind with everything that comes out of her mouth. But I think that
I keep telling her she needs to write a book. I've told her I'm her first person to buy that book.
There are a lot of people that just need to continue to share their voice, and I want to continue to do anything I can to amplify the work they're doing. Lindsay Titus falls into that so easily. Somebody doing great work for the right reasons that always gives me such important things to reflect on. I love her stuff.
And she was on Tuesday. So if you didn't watch it yet, go watch it. You're not Black Friday shopping today. You're not hanging out at Walmart and Target today. So sit around, turn on Christmas movie for the kids, go back and watch Tuesday's drop-in and listen to Lindsay Titus.
Yeah, and you can listen to it on on the Teach Better Talk podcast, so you can like hear it. But Lindsay really is a beautiful speaker, and seeing her on camera is wonderful. Go grab it on YouTube, but you'll find it there. It's super easy. Love it.
I think you said something really important, Dave, that's I think really important to everything that's going on here. And you were talking about habits, right? And I think it's important that every educator, every human, not even educators, just everybody out there has to have some sort of habits. And I think, especially with just having Thanksgiving, right? We can talk about being grateful. And, I think it's important. And one thing that I happen to do that I've started like over the past month, and it's been super helpful, is it comes from Tony Robbins. I'm a huge fan of Tony Robbins. I'm a huge fan of Rachel Hollis, Brene Brown. I'm a big fan of all personal development authors. And I think their work is really important to our schools. I actually include a lot of their work as the research that I use in my book. But I think what's important, and he uses one habit, Tony preaches about one habit, and he calls it the 5-5-5. And so it's basically 5 things, 5 affirmations or incantations, and then 5 things you're grateful for, and then 5 minutes of meditation. And trying to do those 3 things every single day has really not just changed who I am, but it's also just one of those habits about really rooting yourself as when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? Do you roll over and start checking messages on the phone, or do you roll over and right away start saying, hey, I am super excited about going into class today because I love my students and my students love me. I am a person who is just not only a great teacher, but I am an architect of the mind. Making statements like that help you to kind of root yourself in kind of powering yourself through the day and getting through, preparing for anything that's going to come ahead. And then, being grateful and just being grateful to be in this situation, to be alive, to be where we are. Hey, school's tough right now and there's a lot of changes, but at least I have a job. At least I have, students that are able to come in and see me in some capacity. Because if we continue to focus on what we're not grateful for and all these other things, we know what the result is of that. There's burnout, there's lack of interest, there's just not being high performing. And then 5 minutes of meditation. I mean, we all fly through the day. It's so hard for me to find those 5 minutes of meditation, but being able to do it just completely changes everything. And I think that's a habit. And I think you mentioned some other habits, Dave, like, finding your measuring point or finding what it is that you kind of measure yourself up against every day to keep going. And there's thousands of them.
I think one of the interesting parts, not to necessarily bring Lindsay Titus back into this conversation, but Lindsay touched on this. Dave, I think you were watching with us live that day. Lindsay talked on finding your routines, finding your habits. And as Brandon, as you're sharing, geez, so many ideas of things that people can put into their morning routine or evening routine, anything in between. I really, really learned and have thought about it numerous times since Lindsay said it in her daily drop-in on Tuesday, that it really needs to start back with what you were saying, Dave, with that why, with that intention, so that then you can identify what you're going to put into your habits, what you want to put into your routines. Because, when she was sharing on Tuesday about trying to identify the why, the energy you're looking to gain from that choice, from that routine that you're going to put in place, it's a much easier decision to make on what belongs there when you know the intentionality of why you're doing it. And I know that seems like such a simple concept, but I feel like that really struck a chord with me to be able to make the decisions you're talking about, whether it be because your favorite author recommended it, or because you heard it on a podcast, or because your father does it and he's always been successful and you want to be just like dad. Like, a lot of these decisions are so much easier when the purpose and behind choosing to put something into your life. So I love all that.
No, I think that's a powerful reminder. And first of all, to the first part of it, of course I was there on Tuesday because Rae, you were on screen, Lindsay Titus was on screen. Where else would I be watching that? So yes, and yes. But I think there's tremendous power to that. And it kind of goes full circle with our whole conversation today, that I think a lot of teachers can recognize this. Your administrator goes away to a conference and you are terrified of when they return. What new initiative are we going to have to put in place next week? Because they sat in a room, they heard some speaker in a suit with a microphone in hand share some idea. So now it's the next best thing that we have to try. But we have to be careful that we don't do the same thing. There are a lot of great things out there. There's some amazing ideas out there. But we just have to vet them through our why, our purpose, and what it is that we want to go into and grow into. And Brandon, I'm so glad that you brought up like the meditation thing. I'll be very real. I'll be very honest. I hate meditation. I hate it. Rae, this summer when you challenged me to do yoga, I was nervous, because of the flexibility factor and I can't balance. I'm not flexible. But the thing I was most terrified of is I'm going to have to be silent for like a half hour and just be like quiet. And I can't do that. I hate it. Everybody tells me meditation is the thing I need, that I just need to get quiet and be still and be alone in my thoughts. But I hate it. That's not my thing. If Chad Ostrowski were on here and he was saying, go out and start training for an ultra marathon, because that's going to get you, I'm like, I'm on that train. I'm doing it because that's my thing. But for you guys, you might say, nope, I need to be still. I need to be quiet. That's where I'm going to go and I'm going to grow. We each have to find our thing that goes along with how we're going to go and we're going to grow. So keep listening to these amazing ideas, but be like that camel, eat the straw and spit out the sticks. Find the things that work for you and say, yep, that works for me because it's me, not because that person is amazing and I'm going to be a miniature version of them, but because they're growing and I want to grow and I see success from them. And I'm going the same path. So.
Yeah. And I think the other thing on top of that is just, you don't really know always what's going to work until you've tried it,
yep.
And sometimes, like for me, I'm the same way, like getting me to sit still for 5 minutes, Dave, is tough. And getting me to, my mind races, and I'm always like, as I start to sit and like, it's like minute 1, I start to think about this, minute 2, minute 3. Oh my God, I'm so far off and thinking about so many other things. And it's like, I like to do it a lot too before I present or before I stand in front of a group of people. I remember before I did my defended my dissertation, I sat in a room for 3 minutes in just complete silence. And I did that. I mean, and I don't know if anybody has access to it or if you use it, but the Calm app for educators is actually free to educators. And if you can actually put in and fill out a form, which has, and I'm not plugging it because I don't support it or anything like that. It's just a senseless plug, but it has 10 million different meditation from people like LeBron James who do meditations in it, all the way to like Matthew McConaughey. And there's all different kinds
now
of
I'm
things.
in. Now I'm in.
Right?
Matthew McConaughey.
And you can use it with your students.
Dude.
And it's great.
All right. I'm there.
It's fine.
And using it with your students, right? Because think about it. How often in this world of devices and if this world of all these different things, like how difficult is it for, I mean, I do meditation. I do a certain thing called Calm Classroom, which is like a 1 minute exercise with my kids. And it's like watching them do it for 1 minute. Like some of them are on it and some of them are really, like off in left field, because when we hear the word meditation, we think sitting in a circle and like, and that's not necessarily what it is. Like, I remember Einstein used to meditate, and when he would meditate, when I would meditate too, I would start to fall asleep, and he would meditate with a rock in his hand over a metal bucket. So when he started to fall asleep, he dropped the rock and kaboom, and all of a sudden he'd wake back up and focus on what he was supposed to. And I just find that as an interesting story.
I have to tell you guys, I know there's so many apps and supports out there. The best way to meditate and relax is to have Alfred on one side and Harvey on the other. I have 2 dogs. They are what all of you need. If you need Alfred Harvey time, you let me know. They are the perfect relaxation mechanism. It's way better than an app. Just, I'm throwing that out there. So 2 fluffy black mutts really does the job. I just want you guys to know that in advance. But no, you're all correct. And I think Dan says it perfectly here. When faced with new ideas, always ask, will this make the boat go faster? I think that's so incredible to go through, and a process that we all have to take in that personalized approach. It's not about, I'm going to do this because Dave Schmittou does it, or I'm going to do this because Brandon does it, but putting your ideas through that filter and doing the best you can to make it work is so important.
And if at first it doesn't work, keep trying or try something else.
It's true. Guys, we've been live for 56 minutes on this daily drop-in this morning. I knew this is going to be good because I so respect both of you so much. I was so honored that you both agreed to goof off on a live video with me for an hour. I would be remiss if I did not mention that it's Black Friday. I know a lot of educators and just people in general are not only celebrating with family, if you live in America and you did, hopefully a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving yesterday, probably still in a food coma this morning, and then you might end up checking your email. And I will tell you that this morning, Brandon, the first thing I did was I opened up my phone to check my email, and I had like 200 ad emails of all these like sales going on things that I cannot be buying because I don't have the money that I would like to spend on Black Friday. But I do at least want our audience to know that if you want to be looking for any sort of Black Friday support, there are a few things going on with the Teach Better team. You do not need to go buy them, make smart choices, but we at least want to make sure that if you have something that you've been hoping for, that you're able to have access to it at low cost as possible. I tell people all the time, don't buy something with Teach Better. See if there's any way we can help you get it at a cheaper cost. I say that all the time. So this specifically, we have codes for I am better, no spaces, all one word, I am better, 50% off swag, 50% off courses at teachbetteracademy.com. And there's actually a collection in our swag site that not only has Teach Better things, but a wonderful, my favorite piece in the collection right now is with the Aspire swag that we have with Joshua Stamper. It's a beautiful shirt with a great quote about being just a teacher that I really, really love. And I'm so glad that's a part of the bundle. So you have to go check that out. Dave, I know that we've kind of spilled the beans, even though we weren't supposed to yet, but I've heard you say it, and Jeff spilled the beans, that the reason that the Academy is so exciting for me is because you have a new course coming out in that Academy literally next week.
I do. Yeah. It's so fun just being a part of this process with the whole team. But yeah, was that Tuesday? Is that the first already?
It is,
Holy
yeah.
cow.
It's dropping the first, and you're joining me live again to celebrate. We'll have another educator with us, Brian Zwemke, will be here to celebrate. And I was so excited. I actually called my friend Brian, who will be on here, and said, hey, I know we booked you for a daily drop-in this day, but you should know this is a big deal because Dave's course is dropping in the Academy, and I'm so stoked to talk through it.
Brian's amazing. I can't wait to join him. That's cool. Yeah. It's like Tuesday. Well, I'm excited.
I know, it's really great. So we will keep the code and everything active for a while. If you don't get to it today, please take time with your family, make good choices to put positivity and just wonderful things in your life. And if this ends up being beneficial, great, but at least felt like I needed to talk about it. Black Friday is a thing. So really good. Brandon, thank you again for popping on this morning and joining us. Do you guys both have big plans today that you're excited to get to? Anything that's really
I got a house to decorate and some online shopping to do. So yeah, busy.
Very fun. Will you please post a picture, Brandon, of whatever decorations you put up? You should know that I don't put up Christmas decorations. My favorite thing is to see others' decorations. I really need you to be selfless and share the beauty of all the decorations you put up today.
Easy.
Be awesome. Dave, any big plans? Are you decorating the house?
So I mentioned this on Brain Break a couple of weeks ago, but I no longer decorate outside of my house because 2 years ago when I moved next door to Clark W. Griswold. And now anything I put up just looks like a lame attempt to try to copy the guy next door. I mean, he's got the private radio station, the lights that are in sync, like the movie screens, like the whole 9 yards. It is legit. And we have cars that are backed up about a mile to come watch his show. So Jeff's suggestion to me was I just need to go get a big Grinch blow up and act like he's pulling down his lights, and I'm done. So today I'm going to go online and see what I can find. I am one of those people though that has a huge cart filled with Teach Better stuff that I just have to hit buy on and complete the sale. So I'm going to get the new Teach Better hats and another hoodie and fun stuff like that. But Black Friday used to be my day when I would go to Starbucks, just grab a coffee and people watch. So I kind of got to do that already, and now it's nap time. So
I love it. You know that hat is in the Teach Better swag store because of you.
Oh
because
yeah.
Dave needs a hat.
Yeah. You harass Jeff Gargas long enough and things happen. So just know that, people.
Amazing when that happens. Well, I appreciate you both joining us. I know Livia put in a really important comment I want to note is that she says there's a blog series as well. That is, Dave, you've not only launched a course, but there's a blog series that's coming out with your course. Just so much great content. So in my mind, the point is, guys, we talked a lot about surrounding yourself in your life with really, really good things that fuel you and keep the boat moving. And whether that is connecting with people or connecting with content that's going to be only focused on making you better rather than tearing others or tearing yourself down, just make sure that you are surrounding yourself with good, positive things, and you'll be fine. And go connect with all us on social media because we're around and we'd love to help be a dot connector for you. So fun. Thank you to all of you. We will see you later, and make sure that you take some time for yourself and with family today. We'll see you guys later.